Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye sports fans, to another episode of Punting is Winning, your all-Iowa podcast. We are your host. He's JD. I'm Keith. Welcome back to a 2.5 week prior to the start of the regular season here. Getting excited about that. Really pumped up. I said I kind of wish we had a little bit more of a, I don't want to say more of a quality opponent, because that's I don't want to take away from Albany, but I expect this to be a 40-point blowout. I would prefer to have, a 20-point blowout, but have it be something where you're working on stuff, but you get it more where you kind of understand a little bit better where you're at. Instead of, I don't think you get a whole lot out of these games when if you blow somebody out, you look great, and then are you really that good? Are you as good as you looked, or was it just the quality of the opponent? So
yeah, I think from a national perspective, it's nothing. You're expected to win big, and you probably will win big. But what I'm looking for out of it is just cohesion, proficiency. You've got a lesser opponent. You should be able to, impose your will upon them. Go out and do it. Don't struggle with them. Don't make a bunch of bad penalties and mistakes that you really shouldn't be making. Even though it's the first game, you should still know better on some of these things. You've got a pretty upper-class laden team for the most part. You shouldn't be making silly mistakes. So go out there, be proficient, be trouble-free, be penalty-free at least as much as you can, and just go out and work things out. If you have a bad play, maybe later in the game, go back and figure out what you did wrong and run it again, and just see if you can make it better the second time. That's a lot of coachable things in that first game is what I'm kind of getting at is, you kind of I don't know if I really do want them to be super proficient, because then you don't have much to look at. You've got all this confidence going into Iowa State. I'd rather they struggle maybe just a little bit too, or at least have issues that they can work on and correct. That's how you get better, is you make mistakes and fix them.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait and see how that goes. The real test is the litmus test is going to be the second week. So
absolutely. And the sad part about it is it's Iowa State's third week, because they'll have a game in Ireland or someplace, and then they have another game on the 30th, and then they'll play Iowa again. Then after that,
but there's a good chance for, and I hate to put it this way, but key injuries can happen in those two games too, going into that third game.
But they always say that the most you improve is between first game and second game, and I think for Iowa State, having be the third game, they're liable to be a little more smooth, I guess, or a little more with it when it comes to their offense. Just, right at this time of the year when you're going through these drills, these fall camps, the defense typically is usually ahead of the offense anyway. So if you've got an offense that's moving really well on the defense, then you've got something pretty special on offense.
Or you've got a really bad defense.
Well, yeah, there is that.
So anyway, let's get some housekeeping done first, and then we'll get into our observations from the last week or so on the football team, and with fall camp starting and
Media days.
Iowa Media Days, not Big Ten Media Days, and the Kids Day scrimmage. I say scrimmage in air quotes because it's never really a scrimmage, but let's take care of the question of the week from last week, which we asked: where do you think Iowa will end up on total offensive yards per game? And we wanted a number out of 132, I think, is there's 132 or maybe 134 this year. I think there's a couple extra added this year. Where do you think they'll land in the national scale of things, total offensive wise, for yards per game? We had anywhere between 70 and 90.
Yeah, we had a couple of people answered. The usual suspects, Kelvin and Dean, both answered. Dean said 70.
Yeah.
Kelvin said 90. I'd like to see it somewhere, I guess, between 80 and 70 would be my preferred, but
Well,
I'm not going to go
that's
crazy
the
and say
minimum.
I want it in the top 50.
I mean, that would be the minimum. Between 70 and 80 would be the minimum.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it in the 40s or 50s. That'd be great, but let's be realistic.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, well, we have a new question of the week. I'll let you go ahead and ask that.
Okay. What game out of Iowa's schedule this year is the most important for them for the season and also potentially going forward until next season? So what game of the 12 that Iowa will play, maybe a 13 if they're lucky enough to make it,
Or 14.
or 14 if they're supremely lucky. What game is it? Do you feel like it's maybe Penn State game? They want to see how you go up against the big dogs. Is it Oregon? First time playing Oregon at home in a long, long time. Is it Iowa State to get the season rolling? You just let me know. Let us know. Put in the comments what you think Iowa's most pivotal scheduled game this year is, not only for this year, but also going forward, maybe. And they could be two separate games if you want to do it that way, too.
Yeah. Interesting. I have some thoughts, but I don't know. I'd have to think about it some more.
Yeah. I think you need to set the tone early. So I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I think Iowa State's probably the most important game because I think that sets the tone for the season. If you win that one, there's a good chance you could end up going maybe potentially 5-0 start the season, and you have a good quality win under your belt when you start really getting into serious Big Ten play. That could really set the tone. I think if you lose, there's a possibility then you could lose again. Probably the second Big Ten game. Even though I've got Iowa beating Indiana, there's a possibility if they don't beat Iowa State, they could lose that game. And I think after that, then it's kind of a, like last year when Iowa played last year, everybody was like, oh yeah, they're going to go, 10-2, 11-1. And then when they lost their third game of the season, everybody was like, yeah, we're done. Well, I mean, we're not going to playoffs. So what meaningless bowl game do you think we'll end up at this year? And I think it really kind of let the fan base down a little bit to know that and to see that it didn't live up to expectations.
See, and I'm going to go in a completely different direction. It's going to be more dependent upon how the season went, because I'm going to say Nebraska, because it's either a launching pad into a bowl game or a reality check into next year. So that's where I'm going to go with it. But
okay.
Hopefully, honestly, I hope that the Nebraska game is irrelevant to anything. That, hey, if you win, the only relevancy that it might have would be, oh, well, you beat them, you're probably definitely going to the playoffs. That's the only relevancy I want the Nebraska game to have.
Yeah. Well, if that's on the line, I have a feeling that Iowa will not let that one get by.
Yeah. And, they seem to have Nebraska's number, at least late in the game. You always got to count on Nebraska to make a mistake.
An interception. Late.
Fumble, interception.
Right.
It's typically their vaunted savior quarterback screws up somewhere. And it has been that way for several years now.
Quite often. Very often.
So, well, let's talk some football.
This will be a pretty football-oriented podcast this week.
Yeah, things that we've heard, things that we've seen, observations, whatnot from kids practice, from the Iowa media days, the conversations, the interviews. What are your thoughts on? Let's go back to the media day. What were some of the things that kind of stood out to you that you maybe heard either from players, from coaches, just in general that kind of stood out to you?
I just want to start with Tim Lester because I think that one is probably the one that most people are wanting to hear. Everybody knows what Kirk Ferentz is going to say. It's the same stuff every year. But what Tim Lester has to say is probably that people are tuned into the most. And I'll just go back with, he's very excited for the team offensively. His 4 seniors at wide receiver, he's excited and he's proud of their consistency and their route running. And he said they're even blocking really well. That's an improvement from last year. So, they've taken their criticisms to heart over the course of the year, the spring, and they've worked on those things. One of the things I kind of thought was funny is he was talking to somebody in the interview, and he talked about Mark Gronowski's first day. And Kirk Ferentz had alluded to this earlier about his first day, and he went 6 for 9. And Tim Lester says, well, he went 6 for 9, but the ball never hit the ground. So take that for what you think it is. And the way I looked at that is like, okay, 6 to the offense and 3 to the defense is what I kind of took it. So 9 passes and 3 of them were interceptions. So he didn't have the greatest first day, but you could see marked improvement. I think that they said Hank Brown was definitely a solid second quarterback. He liked how Hank Brown made quick decisions and usually the right one, and that he's solidly number 2, like I said. What I like too is that this year they're more installing new facets and new wrinkles into the offense that they didn't get to, where last year there was more foundational thing. So I kind of like that they were actually being able to incorporate maybe 2 tight end sets, but run different plays out of those sets. Whereas before they were a little bit nervous about doing it. They needed to get the foundational things in first and then run, I guess, different sets and different options out of each one. He was very proud of the wide receivers with their situational awareness, when to break routes off early based on coverage. I like to hear that. I also like that he talked about Jeremy Helinski a little bit. He's got a really good, confident quarterback at number 3. He's kind of a throw first, run second kind of guy. And the one thing I thought was funny, he said that last year, and I kind of got a kick out of this, last year they had the opportunity to change protection at the line, the quarterback, but nobody did it. He says one thing that he saw this year already is that Mark Gronowski has changed protections based on what he sees in front of him. And he said that's a foreign thing to last year's team. They didn't do that at all, even though they had the opportunity. None of them felt comfortable doing it, apparently. And that they would check into the wrong defense or wrong offensive scheme, and that would play into the defense's hands. So I kind of get the impression that they weren't comfortable enough. The quarterbacking last year wasn't comfortable enough to change the protection. They just thought that whatever was called is they were going to stay with it, which is fine. But for the most part, if you need to change that occasionally, if you see something that's last second that the defense is pulling, they're maybe going to blitz off the side, and you see it at the last second, you can make a call to change the defensive or the offensive coverage and blocking. I thought that was kind of a fun thing. Do you want to talk about what you thought of Tim Lester, or do you want me to just run into what Kirk Ferentz said?
You can go right into Kirk Ferentz, because I would reiterate the same things that I heard.
Kirk Ferentz,
Tim Lester.
He said a lot. He's always diplomatic about things, and he says things, but he's also careful about what he says and how he says it. Obviously he's got Mark Gronowski. He feels like is the solid number 1. He likes Hank Brown. He likes the way he plays. He's a confident young man. He likes him. He thinks Jeremy Helinski is a solid number 3. And then he went with Jimmy Sullivan's number 4 because he said that Jackson Stratton has a hernia issue, that he's having trouble with his appetite, and he's losing weight, and he needs to get back into game shape before he can be cleared, I guess, or at least he's practicing, I suppose, to some degree, but he's not listed on the top 4 at this point. But I've got a few other little odds and ends. He said to say there's some guys that were out, but nothing that was going to be an ongoing thing, just some guys. He said Jeremiah Pittman was out, TJ Hall was out. Those are just TJ, I think he said bone bruise. He didn't really go into any detail on Jeremiah Pittman, what was going on, but he didn't seem to be too concerned about it.
Jeremiah Pittman's was coming back from knee surgery.
Okay. But he thought he would be available probably in a week or two.
This week.
Bo Stevens was out, but he was actually cleared to play on Saturday, but they just held him back for a day. And then Jackson Stratton, we talked about him a little bit. But some of the guys that were out for Kids Day, TJ Washington and Kamari Moulton were both not available. Not sure why. They just maybe some bruising type stuff. I don't know, but that gives guys a lot of opportunity. And we'll get into Kids Day in a little bit. What were your thoughts on Media Day?
The things that I kind of picked up on, and I've noticed this over the years, when Kirk Ferentz specifically references a team from the past, he's directly comparing his current team to that team. Mm-hmm. So, one year, I don't remember what it was, like 2015, I think he actually referenced the 2009 team. And the trajectory that the 2015 team had was pretty much the same as the 2009, outside of the, when Stancy got injured, that kind of derailed things a little bit. But they bounced back to at least finish the season strong. But this year he referenced the 2002 team. And I'll tell you what, if he references the 2002 team and compares this team to that one, I'll take it any day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But those are little things that I have picked up on over the years, listening to his press conferences, certainly in the preseason or pre-first game, or usually media days. He doesn't throw those things around lightly, and he's very, like you said, he's very calculated with what he brings up and how he says it. And I think this shows, because we go back to that. I go back to that 2015, and you're coming off of a 2014 season that was subpar, and nobody really gave you much of a chance. Your 2015 schedule is probably a little more difficult than your 2014 was, and you're kind of seeing a lot of the parallels of that to this, and you're looking at it thinking, okay, now he's comparing this to the 2002 team, and if he's comparing this to the 2002 team, I'm hoping he's comparing it offensively and saying that we have an offense that can be as dynamic as that 2002 team. And if that's the case, then I would not put sub-50s offensive production out the window by any means. Other than that, it was just kind of the typical, guys doing good job. I'm kind of surprised that he did skirt around the issues of any type of, basically outside of your Mark Gronowskis and probably Aaron Graves and Jennings Dunker. Those are the guys that have spots and restake and that aren't going to be challenged. But outside of that, he was very coy with mentioning anybody in particular. So I don't think, obviously there's nothing been settled. It's too early in camps. Or certainly when Iowa Media Day was 3 days into camp, so you really don't know. But I think he has a pretty generalized idea of who he expects to be in certain spots. And not mentioning them tells me that younger guys are pushing them, but not necessarily in those spots, but they're pushing them, and that's good. That's just kind of the things that I picked up from that. Other things I picked up from on Media Day, just interviews with players, and there's a quiet confidence about it. And I know that players are going to be confident. We've heard it before in the wide receiver room of, oh, well, we're going to surprise you. And then, we're surprised with us with how little you progressed. But I think this year it's kind of a different vibe between those sentiments that they're talking about. And I just think everybody seems to be very loose. And I don't know if that's just that quiet confidence of knowing that they've got some talent there and they're playing well and they've got a really good chance to be good this year, or if that's a direct reflection of the leadership group that keeps them loose. they've talked about how, you know, Gronowski just kind of come in and became the leader, and he's just a steady influence, and people gravitate towards that type of a person, and that's great. And I think there's some guys on the defensive side that are that way as well.
Right.
So, you know, I'm hoping that leadership is kind of what I think has been lacking a little bit. I don't want to say that there's been lacking in leadership, but I mean the vocal leadership since, you know, like a Jack Campbell left. You know, I think Higgins was trying to be there, but you know, we know Nick Jackson is a vocal or as a leader, but he's not a very vocal leader.
Yeah,
you know, he was very reserved, and I don't know if Higgins was that way or not. I wasn't in that locker room, but I'm assuming that's probably the case because I don't think there's been that vocal leader since like the Jack Campbell era, and that kind of shows out on the field. And I think having somebody step up and having that, you know, I hate to say the alpha male, but in a roundabout way, that's kind of what they're alluding to is the alpha male who can get everybody on the same page. So that's what I picked up.
Yeah. It was kind of and I didn't really go into the George Barnett offensive line interview. I didn't really look at it much. I did see Bud Meyer a little bit. I only listened to a little bit of that. I could only stand so much. But I kind of got this impression that things were, they were quietly optimistic or cautiously optimistic, maybe you might want to say, the coaching staff is at what they have in front of them. I think they're stronger in groups that they've not had strength in groups for a long time. Quarterback being number one, wide receiver being number two. I think they've got some good quality kids in for those two groups. And I think they're very optimistic about the progression and the ceiling of where these guys could be. Maybe not right now, but at the end of the season, they could be one of the better groups that Iowa's had for a long time. Quarterback and wide receiver both. Defensive line depth, I think, is something that one of them alluded to about how many different guys that they could put in. And even Yosei Epenesa is getting run at one of the defensive end positions, and he might see more playing time than what was originally suspected that he would. So, you know, right now, I think they're kind of giving the impression that there's a lot of guys out there that could step forward and they feel comfortable with them. And that's probably not something that we've, in a lot of groups that we've seen in the last probably 3 or 4 or 5 years, especially from that quarterback spot. We were really down. And I mean, you didn't know it at the time, what kind of skill you were going to get out of that position. And we really didn't get much out of it. It was very disappointing in the last 3 years. I won't go into names and drag anybody down, but that was a group that you could look at and say, wow, what can we do to get that better? And it just didn't seem like it was ever progressing to get better. But this year, I think there is that optimism and that kind of a confident swagger about that group, that because none of those guys were here last year. None of them has played. I don't think there's a single guy on the team at the quarterback position that's played except for Jackson Stratton. And he's currently not able to play. He's the only one that's seen reps. So, you know, Hank Brown has got a little bit of a leg up over Jeremy Hecklinski because he's been there longer. Hecklinski's only been here for a month. Brown was here when he transferred that semester, so he had all of the spring to practice. He had all that time to sit with Tim Lester and to talk about offense, go through plays, what to do and certain things. So he's ahead at this point. So I feel comfortable right now. I don't want to see Mark Gronowski go down, obviously. He's your bread and butter for the team, I think. But I think we're in a much better position this year with number 2 than we've been in the last 5 years. Probably more than that.
Yeah, our number 2 this year is probably better than our number 1 has been the last few years.
That might be, yes.
And I honestly, I don't feel like we've had a really good quarterback since Nathan Stanley.
Well, yeah, at least somebody that you could trust to go down the field late in the game. At least, you know, you didn't just go, well, if we're not starting inside of their 30-yard line, we're SOL. And I felt like that was the way it was for the last 2-3 years. I couldn't expect this team to sustain a drive longer than 50 yards. I just never had that confidence. And
I watched a few older games last night when I was trying to go to sleep, and I kind of we talked about Petrus when he went to Utah State and how he had a better year there, blah, blah, this and that. Him having a better offensive line, yeah, he probably would have had a better career at Iowa, but he was the most immobile quarterback I think I've seen, and that's saying a lot when you have Deacon Hill in there.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if either one of us could outrun both of them, but it'd be close.
Yeah, I just watching those, and I'm like, there's just so many times where I see people like Brendan Sullivan would have stepped up, or taken a couple steps to his outside or to his right and avoided the pressure that he just couldn't do. And that's we haven't, like I said, we haven't had something like that since Nate Stanley, and Nate Stanley wasn't a blow your doors off kind of guy either, but he at least had some escapability, not great escapability, but he could avoid some pressure.
Right.
So I don't know. It'll be nice to have that option, and having the option of a guy that can fake that handoff and pull it and run.
Yeah.
And you feel comfortable with him doing it.
Well,
I think he's a big enough guy that it's, a little less injury prone in that regard, to be able to run the ball just because of his bigger size, but still have that mobility. It's a good thing to have. So
yeah, it's good to have a quarterback start the season with fresh legs.
Yeah.
Ones that aren't messed up from, it's 2 years in a row, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, shall we jump into what we saw from Kids Day?
Sure. Now, I'll preface this with, we didn't either one of us go to the kids practice or whatever. We're just getting this off of what we could find.
Yeah. I actually had a wedding shower that I had to go to that day, so that took my day up. I didn't even get a chance to follow along with tweets and whatnot until after we got home. So
yeah, I had some going on too. Couldn't get out of it.
I'll lead things off here.
Go ahead.
The things that I saw that A, impressed me, B, didn't maybe necessarily impress me, were things that I see you kind of have to look at in a different way, so to speak. Things that I liked, Nathan McNeil. I really like that kid. I really like he's definitely got some swagger to him. He's got some swivel for a kid he looks like he's 180 pounds, but he's 200. And I think that gives him a little bit more durability. It's like watching Akram Wadley with a little more weight on him, is what I kind of get from watching that kid. And that's as a freshman. I can definitely see opportunities for him to get some playing time in that running back group. Other things that I kind of saw that I was impressed by, the confidence that Hank Brown had. He just seemed very comfortable dropping back. And I'm going to say the 9 of 21 for 121 yards by Gronowski. Where I'm going to spin this in a positive way is to say completed 9 passes for 121 yards. That's almost 14 yards of completion. Yeah, the completion percentage isn't where we want it to be. He'd be the first one to say, yep, I need to be better at that. But the fact that it's almost a 14-yard per pass completion, that's not something we're used to. I mean, I'm used to seeing 5, 6, 7 yards for completion and thinking, wow, we're really moving the ball now. So I take that 9 of 21. Again, I take it with a great salt simply for 2 reasons. One, it's only the 8th practice, so this is his 8th practice practicing with the team. He's learning. He won't make the same mistakes twice. That's Tim Lester has said that. Kirk Ferentz has said that. And he's also going up against a defense that knows the offense like the back of their hand and is very good anyway. So I don't put a whole, and also the other thing I don't put a whole lot of stock into is, when you're talking about those scrimmages, they're situational plays a lot of times. So they're moving the ball back. So you're not able, I think Tom Kakert even said it's hard to get a general gauge of total yardage because some catches that were probably catches, they may have marked as out of bounds. Like there was one to Caden Weechin.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched it 3 times, and there's no way I thought he was ever out of bounds when he caught it. And that would have been 35-yard completion. That didn't get counted.
Yeah.
So I take that with a grain of salt. Yeah, there were some things that he needs to clean up. Throwing off his back foot to over the top of the offense or the defensive line on that screen, not a good play. But those guys were also sitting on the screens too all day long because they knew when they were coming. So again, take them with a grain of salt. I don't think those are things that are severe red flags. And I would take, honestly, his 9 of 21 for 121 yards over Hank Brown's 7-11 for 35 yards. Higher completion percentage, but I'd rather take the yards. So I don't know. That's just me. Things that I also thought were really good. I thought the defensive backfield was really good, although I do think there was a few times that they got away with some pass interference, especially in the end zone on a fade pass. A couple of times that they probably would have gotten that called on them. But for the guys that were out and having guys step in, they held their own. Carson Shire was, again, solid. Solid to borderline fantastic. And then just the wide receiver group as a whole, adjusting to the ball. There were a couple of balls that bounced off shoulder pads, which was a little disheartening. But again, 8th practice. If they get that cleaned up in the next 2 weeks, I'll be happy. What about you?
Well, I took some notes and just some things that were basically reiterated by a bunch of people, and I guess I'm gonna sit that stuff back out. I thought the offense, of course, over the last years, I think it was vastly improved at the stage of the season or the stage of the fall camp. There were some snap issues from the center.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a couple of times on shotgun snaps that went either, I don't know if it was the snaps were bad or the quarterback just didn't make the catch on them. But I know one of them was pretty far outside, so I didn't expect that. But those are things that can be ironed out. Those are not big time deals. They will be after the first game or two. Those would be pretty serious issues. Ball security. I mean, you talked about the pick 6 by Cohen Entringer where he's sitting on the screen, the tight end screen. There was a fumble, an exchange between Jazz and him that needs to get cleaned up. Mm-hmm. I thought Seth Anderson, from what everyone was saying, had a great day, which is good to see because he's usually always been dinged up, and we really haven't had a good chance to see the real Seth Anderson.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier that the defense right now seems like it's ahead of the offense, which is normal. What I like to see, and you alluded to it earlier, was more down the field plays, more passing yards. There was a 44-yard pass it was Seth Anderson, I believe, had a 44-yard pass.
Seth Anderson,
catch.
Jacob Gill, one of the two.
And then
couldn't tell if it was 5 or 6.
Reese Vanderzee had a nice 16 or 18-yard catch along the sidelines. So those are things I like to see from especially from a quarterback who's 49-6 in his career in college. Those are the things you kind of almost want to expect from him, and that's where I think that's where the optimism for everybody is coming from, is that you have a leader, you have a guy that's been out there and he's done it. He's done it at this level, but at least he's played teams at this level. He played Iowa 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. He's played Oklahoma State. He's played some of the teams that that when South Dakota State played, they played some heavy hitters. So he's gotten to see what it's about as far as, from a Division I, high Division I standpoint. So he knows what to look for. He just hasn't done it a lot. Like you said, Nathan McNeil, I thought from all indications he looked really good, looked the part, and didn't look like a true freshman. He had a nice spring. We talked about him in the spring. One of the things that I'm a little nervous of is when you've got a right-handed quarterback, you have to have a left tackle that protects the blind spot. And I think that's right now where we are having, that's where our weakness is on the offensive line. I don't want to call anybody out, and I won't, but we need to get that shored up because there was some mistakes being made that could cost us down the line that really need to be cleaned up. Especially if you're a right-handed quarterback, you can't see that coming from the left side. So you have to make sure that you have somebody out there that's really good. And one of the things he mentioned, I think Kirk Ferentz might have mentioned this off to the side. He mentioned that Lucas Allgaier, a true freshman, is impressing people, and that he could see some playing time. He could push for that, maybe potentially move to the left tackle. Right now they got him playing a little bit of guard, but he could move to that left tackle spot if if he shows proficiency and learns, how to move his feet at this level. And I think he will. And I think that's the guy that will be the anchor of the offensive line in a couple of years. People will be talking about him and Tyler Linderbaum in the same breath. I think he's got that. They say he's got that kind of ability. One of the things I thought was funny too, when Kirk Ferentz was off to the side, he said something about, we had some guys that were close on some catches, but he says, one of the things is passes aren't always going to be right to you. You're going to have to make the tough catches. And that is something that I don't know that I've heard him say that too many times. So, that obviously is something that's bothering him to have him say it out in public. Usually stuff like that is bothering me. He'll talk to the team about it or talk to the coaches about it in that particular group. But he said it out loud to the people, the public, the reporters, that, yeah, you're going to have to make some tough catches sometimes. There's just, that's just how you play football. Is not everything's going to be perfect. And, obviously that seems like it's a pretty dumb moment, but that stuff that if they're said in public, that's something he's thinking about. That you need to make those tough catches, and that's good. You always do. The NFL, you see that every week. Guys making really tough catches you just you can't even understand how they even caught it. Yeah. That's how things have to be. Nothing's ever perfect. So other than that, just offensive line, defensive line. We talked about offensive line a second ago. I'm going to go with defensive line. I think that there's a lot of depth, and there's going to be a lot of pieces that are going to be shuffled in and out. People going to be in and out all the time. And I think that's a great thing to have. Mm-hmm. But we talked about this last week, that defensive back, having TJ Hall out, he needs to have all the reps he can get. And having him out for however long, if it's a week or if it's a week and a half or it's 3 days, whatever, those are 3 days he's not going to have. So, in my opinion, you need to get those other guys just as ready as you can, so that if he's not able to go, or if he's not gotten the reps that he needs, and it shows in the first couple games, you got to put somebody else in there and get them going. But you got to have them ready, got to have them prepared. So that position is the one that scares me more than anything, except for maybe left tackle. That left tackle thing is dangerous. Everybody knows, and it's this way every year for every team, and it's been that way for as long as football's been in existence. The games are won in the trenches. Everybody says it. It's true. If you can dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, your chances of winning are very high. The games are won predicated on offensive and defensive line play. And right now I feel like our defensive line is really good. Our offensive line is getting there. We've got to fill in some pieces that are a little suspect maybe, but it could get there. I think this is going to be a good season. The only issue I have with the season and the way things are going is the schedule. When you're playing teams that are ranked in today's top 25, that they're especially getting them at home helps against, to better your chances of winning the games. But, if this team had last year's schedule, I would say easily 10-1 or 10-2, 11-1 potentially. But with this schedule, I think the ceiling is 9-3, 8-4. I think 7-5 more likely. And I hate to say that because I'd really like to see 9-3 or 8-4.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see how the season unfolds. One thing I do want to caution everybody is we're basing all this observations off of one practice. Some guys may have had a bad practice. We got guys that were out, positions that were not filled with what will be the starter. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about statistics from a scrimmage that they're putting them in they're trying to put them in situations that are, honestly, sometimes they want to put them in a no-win situation or a bad situation. A, to see if they're going to check out of it. C, and B, how they handle that. So I don't, if this was a full-blown inter-squad scrimmage with some other team, okay, it'd be a different story. But when you're talking about playing against your own defense, it's situational. I don't put a whole lot of stock in anything that goes on in those spring or fall camp scrimmages that are open to the public. Because I don't think, for number one, they're not going to show you a whole lot anyway.
Yeah, pretty
they don't want to.
Right.
Yeah. So, but again, just remember it's a snapshot of one day. If one quarterback had a bad day, it doesn't mean that he's had a bad camp. It just means that he had a bad day. Or if one tackle had a bad day or couldn't block anybody, it could be that, hey, the starter wasn't even dressed that day. Who knows? It's just keep that in mind when we're talking about this stuff.
But you also have to understand too that this is the only snapshot we're going to get until game one.
Right.
So, we have to report on what we see, and we have to make opinions based on what we're seeing. Do I feel like this is the same team that you're going to get game one as what we saw the other day? No, absolutely not. I think this team will improve leaps and bounds from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. I think you won't even know the team. Totally different than what you're seeing Friday and Saturday from the media day to the kids skate day scrimmage or whatever. It's not going to be the same team. There's going to be there's going to be guys that are going to come out of the woodwork that you don't even know, that they don't even know, are going to come in and just turn heads and work for starting spots or at least a lot of playing time. One of the things too I did hear was,
not to mention the fact that when you get into game weeks, you've got game prep. You're game planning for a specific opponent. There's no game planning for your own defense. I mean,
right.
How do you do that?
Right.
So
yeah. Well, one of the things too I heard that was a positive is that Drew Stevens is kicking the ball very well. We knew that in the spring game he did not have a good spring practice, whatever you want to call it, scrimmage. But Reese Dakin, I guess he was just hammering them, rockets,
nukes,
just 60 yards in the air, 65 in the air. And then with the roll, you're getting 70 some yards out of some of those punts. I'm just like, this guy has the potential to just set records that'll never be broken. I mean, he's just that strong.
Weapon like that and flipping the field, that just is invaluable, especially if you've got a good defense.
And this guy, depending, of course, on situation, I don't think there's a way that this guy could. I think there's a way this guy could average 50 yards a punt if the situations were right. I mean, obviously, you don't want to kick from your own 40 or from their 40, and just because you're out of field goal range and you want to pin them deep or kick sideline stuff. Obviously, you're not gonna have 50 yards. But if you go 3 and out at your 25-yard line, there's an opportunity to get a 50-yard average pretty easily if you're doing that. But let's hope that he doesn't. I kind of hope he doesn't do 50 yards average, because then, we're always going to be punting really long. But by the same time,
I hope he does, but
I
hope he does, but it's limited.
Yeah. I hope he punts 6 times all year for a 50-yard average. How's that?
Yeah.
Maybe
be
I'll
nice.
put 6 times against Penn State. Who knows? That's all I have. Other than right now on TV, I believe at 7:00 was the Big Ten Network is in Iowa City, and they were giving their report. I have it. I'm recording it as we speak, so I will watch it directly after this. And so if you have a chance to, if you have had a chance, I'm sure Big Ten will show it over and over and over because they've shown Ohio State, Indiana, and Penn State and all of their fall camp days, their media day with Big Ten Network. So you'll get a chance to watch it even if you didn't record it. But I thought I'd just better make sure I record it.
It'll end up on YouTube as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. So Howard Griffith and Jerry DiNardo and some of those guys will get to tell you what their thoughts are on Iowa.
Yeah, Jake Butt's there and Dave Revson. I don't know if DiNardo and Griffin are both there.
No. Well, whoever's there for the Big Ten Network will tell you what they think.
Yeah. I know Dave Revson's there because I saw some on his Twitter account, some little snapshot videos. So
he's good.
I know he's.
I like him.
Yeah. I was actually going to bring that up as well. That was just probably finishing up as we're finishing up this recording tonight. Going forward, we will start having this back out on Monday evenings, or Sunday evening, actually. And certainly after the season starts, we'll be doing Sunday recordings and having those out as soon as possible. Just kind of as the summer has gone, or the spring and late winter, it would just made more sense to do things on a Monday. Allowed us to get some things done on the weekends that we couldn't normally have gotten done. So, but going forward, this will start going back to a Sunday night. You'll see this out on Sunday evenings.
Yeah, that's way we're a little more fresher with the information from the Saturday games, and we'll have it out on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that'll help too.
Absolutely.
I don't have anything
else. All right.
else.
Well, I don't have anything else either.
We're excited for the season. 19 days away. It's coming quick.
Yeah. I, like I said, I hate to wish the summer away, but I can't wait.
Yeah. It'll be fun to watch Mark Gronowski, a solid quarterback. Hopefully, we can kind of start getting used to something better than what we've been seeing.
Yeah.
And continued on down the line year after year after year after year, and we can get a quality QB.
Well, with that being said, we'll wrap it up. As usual, like and subscribe. Thank you to the 10 new subscribers we've gotten over the last month or so. Appreciate the listenership and the support.
Absolutely.
Had quite a few views on the pod last week, so really appreciated that as well. Again, like I said, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, so feel free to hit that subscribe button. Give us a like, comments. We like to have interaction with the fans. Tell us where we're way off base. Tell us what we hit on. We're fine with that. Other than that, catch us on all of our normal social media platforms, and check out our merch store for anything that might jump out and catch your eye. Coffee mug, t-shirt, mouse pad, whatever. Any of that stuff that you buy goes to helping bring in better athletes. Or, even though it's a meager penance on our side, it's still every dime counts. So, with that said, we'll wrap it up and get out of here and end it on a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.